Welcome back to another episode of the show. I've got a sex goddess, a badass rule breaker. Not only that, this woman is talking the real talk on all kinds of platforms. She's a powerful voice, but even more so, a powerful feminine force in the world right now. I am so excited to introduce you to the one, the only, Taylor Ferber. Taylor is coming on the show, and she is a provocateur just like me in the pop culture world. Playboy Magazine has called her the celebrity whisperer. A-listers say she is a force to be reckoned with. She's been featured in USA Today, Fox News, NPR, Huffington Post, Vulture, and to add to that, honeys, wait a minute. Taylor has also interviewed countless stars. She's reinvented the carpet reporting with her own irreverent, badass, candid, next-level conversations everywhere from the Grammys and the Oscars to the MTV Awards. Yes, she also has her own incredible talk show that is called Talk to Me, Taylor, which is putting a new spin on talk, breaking out of the politics and the boxes of the world and saying what people are really thinking but too scared to say, bringing that real talk to the main stage. Let's bring you on, Taylor. Come on, mama. So happy to have you.
Hello. I feel like I need like, literally, I'm just going to bring you with me everywhere. That was such an amazing intro. And if I may, I mean, you did enough tooting of my horn. Take that how you will, everybody. But I'm known on my show to give epic intros. Like every celebrity always says that is like the most awesome intro I've ever heard. That shit, like that takes the cake. That was amazing. And, you know, in all seriousness, coming from you, that means so much because, you know, I think you are an absolute badass goddess in your power legend. So it means, you know, it's to the nth degree coming from you. So, you know, in honor of Pussy Priestess, it's like you just listed the repertoire and all with, you know, maybe a little under boob or nipple showing. Hello. I mean, we can do it. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And also just a side note, right? Like that wasn't rehearsed for those that are listening. We were getting on and I was going to do her normal kind of intro. And true to your nature, right, and any provocateur's nature, it's like the real juice comes from the deep authenticity, being raw, being off the cuff, being candid. And so that's what the energy is that we're bringing right now. And I want to highlight that because anyone who's listening, it's like, get ready for this ride because with two powerhouse women coming in unabashed and candid, anything can happen. Anything could be spoken. Lives could be changed.
It's so true. And it's so indicative of a mindset and what we do. And this is not fake news, everybody. Josephina starts the show and she's like, okay, like back for another episode. And she's like, no. Okay, scratch it. Okay, scratch it. So she's like, okay, no. Take two, forget it. And I said, you know what? I am like, I did not prepare. I'm going into this rogue like I do most things. And let's face it, when you are a rule breaker, that's kind of, we don't play by the rules. We're not in a box. We're not rehearsed. We're not told what to do or say or think. And so what you see is what you get. And what you just heard and saw is what you got, people. That's what I have to say about that. So I'm excited. Yes. So Goddess Body and Pussy Priestess Part 2, because you were on my show.
Yes, I was on your show about a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So we definitely check out that episode. We're just going elongation of, Talk to Me, Taylor. But her show's actually called Cancel Me, Baby.
That's right.
The one that I was on, right?
That's
it's called
right.
Cancel Me, Baby. And I know it's going to be transitioning, I think, fully into Talk to Me, Taylor. Talk with me, Taylor.
Exactly. So the whole idea of Cancel Me Baby was that, right? I was somebody who really made my own little universe and rules in the otherwise really stiff and contrived plastic world of celebrity interviewing and red carpet reporting. And then when Cancel Me Baby, I had my own platform on the red carpet, doing my thing and humanizing celebs. Cancel Me Baby was kind of another iteration of that in which I realized I always kind of use celebrities to be my mouthpiece and be the platform to get to issues and get deeper on things that I wanted to talk about, right? And issues that we were all, that were going on in our day-to-day lives. And I realized like, I don't need them. And so Cancel Me Baby was really, my way of saying, you know what, like, you can't put me in a box politically as a woman. And as Josephina had referenced, a huge part of my brand is, you know what, like, I am proud and empowered being, the feminine, sex object and beautiful and sexy, and also the intellect and the brain. Like, don't put me in a box. Again, don't tell me what to say or think. And really pushing up against, especially in a time now where there's orthodoxy, everybody's, sheep and told what to think and group think. And my show was really breaking out of that and saying what I thought. It may piss off the left, the right, whatever it is. But I thought that it was it was so refreshing because I made my own rules, like I said, and it was, I think, what most people actually were thinking. I had so many people constantly this is what's the best part, from all sides of the aisle, reaching me going, thank you for saying that. Like, that is exactly what I'm thinking, and no one says it. So that is Cancel Me Baby. It's like, cancel me, I dare you. With that being said, the reason it's transferring back to Talk to Me, Taylor, is because the show is so much more than getting into cancel culture topics. And I also feel like cancel culture has kind of had its run and its shelf life. I don't want to be pinned into that niche. And like, let's be honest, both sides have weaponized it. It's gone so far and we're kind of just like over it. So, Cancel Me Baby, it'll still be like a little tag. It's always the vibe, like, cancel me, I dare you.
Question about that. I love that. And it's the same. It's like the same thing. It's like, again, if we're outgrowing a box or a niche, it's like time to move on. Even with Pussy Priestess, it's like, it's still there. It's not there. And there's an even bigger iteration, right, of Josephina and the show and all of those pieces. And I wanted to one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was specifically about society that's walking on eggshells right now, society that's pitted against each other politically, religiously, as well as the cancel culture at large, even before the things that are going on in the Middle East, and even before COVID even had a lot of separation of vaccinated, not vaccinated, mask, not mask. Like, I've just seen a trending pattern in human consciousness, which is going towards more and more and more separation to weaken society, to turn against each other. But before I was witnessing that, cancel culture started to hit the mainstream. And I'm curious on your take on, what do you think was maybe one of the initial catalysts and sparks of why cancel culture really took off? We went from freedom of speech. We went from everyone's allowed to be a bitch or have their own opinion, right, and agree to disagree, to now a society where it's like, oh my God, you say the word pussy, I'm so offended, and you're a horrible person, and now I'm attacked. It's like everything verbally is now like a life or death survival attack, and now you're just canceled if you do one thing for being a human. So I'd love to hear your take on it, Taylor, and probably the only take I think that is a narrative that you could bring specifically around the cancel culture and what you've experienced.
So this is so interesting. And I have to say, this is a little bit like, the teacher being taught, because I have never, given all my work and my background, I've never been asked this question. So brilliant. Yeah. Genius. I've had a really interesting kind of arc and relationship with cancel culture. And it's funny because being, connecting and communicating with people was always my dream. Like, my soul knew even before I knew. Like, I always reference when I was like 12 and most kids were cool at summer camp and I was like impersonating Ryan Seacrest and Carson Daly, right? So, and I happen to be somebody who's very outspoken and will call things as I see them. And making my way and carving my path in this climate, I always used to say, why couldn't I just come up in the time with like the Wendy Williams and the Howard Sterns, where like shock jock Howard Stern, right? Where anything rolls. And now in my evolution, I've really come to realize, again, this sounds a little woo-woo, but you are in this climate at this time with your voice for this reason. So now I fucking embrace it. So what I think happened, and I think, again, my personal story is a weird kind of microcosm of the whole shift.
Bring it, sister. Yeah, bring it.
So get a load of this. When I first kind of started my career, I was wide-eyed. I started my career at VH1 and MTV in Times Square in the iconic TRL building. And being someone
TRL.
Yeah, who could forget? And being someone so at this time, this is when, do you remember the iconic BuzzFeed, like 5 party movies from like all those like list articles? Those were really hot. And, you know, really kind of fun pop culture-y stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
You know, 10 greatest party movies, whatever. So the world of like blogging and wokeism and social justice warriors and hopping on the bandwagon, that was just kind of, it was kind of just like at the, you know, it was at the like almost like the precipice of that. And so being the, you know, kind of, you know, grab the bull by the balls person I am, I went to basically like the head of editorial at VH1. I had only been there a year as a producer. I went to a totally different department, the head of like the EVP. And I said, I want to write and be a contributor. So a little time after doing that, again, I said to him, hey, I want to do red carpet reporting. I'm going to transfer to LA. Knowing nobody in LA, having no family, just knew. He's like, all right, we'll send you. Go ahead. Sure enough, soon after I get there, I wrote an op-ed about Chrissy Teigen. And in it, I called out her Twitter bullying hypocrisy because I said this is somebody who's super influential and who's claiming to get bullied by trolls, but is like the world's biggest bully on the internet on Twitter that we've ever seen. So I wrote this up. This is completely cancel culture before its time. This was probably, you know, 2014-ish. And so Chrissy Teigen got caught wind of the article. She starts tweeting at me personally, starts tweeting at VH1, being like, how dare you run this? Don't police me. And I'm tweeting at her, you talk about free speech. I said to her what I would say now and what you just said, like, hey, we're all entitled to our opinions. Like, isn't that great? Like, live and let live, right? And so basically it became a whole national news story. VH1 suspended me. Allegedly, she called to get me fired and tried to shut me up. Huffington Post, Yahoo, all these outlets picked it up. And out of principle, the company, you know, out of principle, I walked because the company took her side over mine. And I said, I'm peace for a reason. I believe in what I said. And so you can't shut me up. So, you know, it ended up turning into an entire, I thought my career was going to be over. Again, I was like fresh on the scene and it ended up, everything happens for a reason. My career blossomed in so many ways. So thank you to Chrissy Teigen. But the craziest part of this story is that, you know, cut to a couple years later, I don't know, 5-6 years later, her bullying scandal in which she's going into people's DMs, you know, famous or not, telling them to kill themselves and bullying in the most ruthless ways comes to light. So I wrote an op-ed in USA Today going, first of all, I called this out years ago before any of you. She tried to cancel me. And guess what? She still shouldn't be canceled because it just goes round and round and round. And it's always an eye for an eye. Why don't we learn from this? Why doesn't Chrissy Teigen have an honest dialogue with her audience about bullying? Right? Like, what does cancel culture accomplish? And so, you know, that whole story just goes to show how, you know, people from everybody from, you know, the everyday person to someone high profile like Chrissy Teigen, I think what the whole world of, you know, blogging and Twitter and all of it did made everybody feel like their point of view, their feelings was the end all be all, like the final say. And it just became this kind of culture mob mentality. I also think that there's a part of it to where it gave voice to what was prior, like the voiceless, but it's gone way too far. And that's why it's like, I always try to see, even though I despise woke culture and I think it's so extreme and honestly doesn't usually make any sense, I try to put myself in their shoes, even though like half the time it's like deranged. And I think, I think that they are trying to do the right thing. They think it's the right thing, even though it's unhinged. And it's again, this climate of like righting the wrongs, but it's just like anything, it's just kind of gone way too far. And especially like the icing on the cake to the whole evolution of what we're seeing now is the fact that you have these same so-called social justice warriors literally defending Osama bin Laden. I'm like, okay, this is past the point of no return. Like, this is where it's all been like what are you even saying? Like, where are your brain cells? So again, none of it makes sense, but I think that is a huge part of it. Wouldn't you agree that it's like almost like correcting the past, but it's like overcorrection now to where it's actually backwards?
Well, what I would say is it's interesting because what we talked a little bit about on your episode was about extreme and polarity, and where one thing swings so far in one direction where we're trying to course correct and it swings in another direction. We were talking about like pussy popping and like in your face sexuality and is there too much, right? So definitely go check out that episode. It's lots of juice in that on her podcast. And like, I do believe from my experience, my knowledge, my training, my education, that this is following a survival pattern in our consciousness. And the survival pattern is to turn against the weaker ones with what we think is the right or the stronger, to kind of ice out or evolve out this other, right? Hence the woke conscious. It's like we're woke, so we know the way because we're woke, and everyone else needs to follow us, or you need to be, in some lack of a better word, exterminated, removed, non-existent if you don't come along. It's like there's been so many ways where, and I think cancel culture has really highlighted it, but even before the cancel culture became public and it became trendy and it became something that people crave, which is belonging. So if they can belong in a culture that is offended, and it's okay to be offended, and we're celebrated for being offended, then we can all trauma bond, right, around how offended we are, and then create the mob that's then bigger to go and attack someone else who, let's say, isn't identified with a culture or one side or the other, and they're standing independently. It's way easier to take down that independent individual who's got a loud voice or a platform or willing to dismantle and not live in any boxes, right? Because we're free thinkers. And forever, free thinkers have always been a threat to society. Yeah. Free thinkers have always been a threat to religion. And so I feel like that has always been under the surface. And I feel as if before COVID, with all these kind of Twitter back and forth bantering, people just started to get really fucking bold, in my opinion, behind the screen, where there now was this layer of protection and safety, which they could just say and do and attack and troll and do all these things. And then suddenly, just like, law of the universe, like attracts like, and suddenly all these people come together as a conglomerate, and now it's created its own culture. And now suddenly we have a cancel culture, which has its own mindset, its own beliefs, its own triggers, its own emotional, dominant, leading, driving force. And now it also creates a sense of belonging for others who maybe didn't feel like they belong. And I feel like that's from what I've experienced has really come up. And, I didn't really pay attention to cancel culture until, I was canceled. But the thing is, you can never cancel a person. A person exists, we live, we breathe all day long. You can never cancel a human being. It's impossible. So cancel culture is a bunch of BS because it's just another societal box that people are not aware of, that they've subscribed into. And then canceling individuals like you and I, who are bold, who have a sense of safety beyond the screen, but in ourself, in our body, in our power. That's again the free thinking, like fear. So therefore, we're an easier target for the cancel culture who has their false sense of safety and strength behind a screen.
And to take it a step further, I have my I'm jotting down notes as you're talking, like journalism.
I love it.
Because, I think if we take it a step further, there are so many things at play, right? Like I love that you said something to the effect of like, I talk a lot on my show about victim mentality, and you're exactly right. It became cool to be the victim or to be offended. And it's like, you bitches have it twisted, because there's nothing cooler than somebody rising above the ashes, no matter what they've been through, and been like, I'm not a victim. So like, that's where they have it twisted. It's the climate.
Yes.
It's the climate of the participation trophy of everybody being coddled. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a generational thing. Like, I'm not a parent yet, but I will tell you this, my kids will not get a fucking participation trophy. So don't even think about it. But it's
oh my God, the participation trophy.
No, it's not happening. It's also, I talk about this a lot, especially with COVID, with what's going on with, the Israel-Hamas war, the complete and utter lack of critical thinking. Like these kids and these grown adults, for that matter, cannot literally think anything through. They will hop on something because of a meme. That's really alarming. And the idea, right, of powerful people playing into it. And that's what I take issue. I mean, the left does it, the right does it, Trump does it, this person does it. Like, everybody preys on that, that kind of tribalism herd mentality, as much as I hate to say that. And like, their hands aren't clean in that either, because they love that stuff. They just rile up their base. And, it's all such nonsense. And I think you exactly hit the core. It's like, at the end of the day, people are, I feel like, lonelier than ever because of technology. They're so isolated. Like, people probably have carpal tunnel from jerking off to porn so much, like not in real life. And they just want to feel like they belong. Unfortunately, this is an extreme, version of that's come to fruition,
Yeah. And to that point as well, I think there's a statistic, if I get this wrong, I get it wrong, but something around the lines. And I think it's like 48% of like teens, like in high school and college, are not actually dating or sexually active because of all the technology. Right. Well, and so which is wild, right? Because it's like, again, we're exploring. I've been exploring since I was like 5 years old, and it's like connecting and human touch. And so just to kind of, go onto that trail and that thread is, I think there is something to say with the younger generation, that the celebrating of ambient intimacy, which is like the false sense of intimacy through our digital electronics, which doesn't create real people skills. We miss out on how to attune to one another, how to actually have a conversation where we don't have to just get off and run away, right? It's like, how can we learn to be with someone who has a different opinion, not be so upset and shut down our body and run away. And now we're just here in our victim story because we haven't learned the skills of critical thinking or have emotional health or emotional skill sets on how to actually, in a healthy way, relate to one another, whether it's sexually, whether it's relationally, whether it's emotionally, whether it's with conflict. And those are some really critical, fundamental relational skills that are not being focused on. And for people who are saying things that are different besides the status quo, which is, you against me, victim perpetrator, right? Victims rescuer, right? It stays in that tribalism, but also it stays even lower in the survival consciousness, because from the Eastern perspective of the chakra systems, survival is the base level, the root chakra. We've gone up to a bit of the relational and tribalism in the second chakra with relationships. But even then, when we're looking at the way we're turning against each other, it's going to collapse us back down to pure survival instinct. And in nature, everything's trying to kill everything else. But if we do that to one another, we're going to have a civil war and extinct our own civilization.
Yep, literally. And the crazy thing about, just to kind of like bring it back, and look, the other side, so to speak, is guilty of this too, but a huge reason that I take issue with the woke ideology that has such a grip on culture and news and media and consumption and pop culture and all of it is because these are the people preaching unity and equality and acceptance and understanding, yet are the most intolerant, right? And the hypocrisy there. And it's funny because you talk about, even in an intimate setting, being with someone who with different, opinions than you. I recently on my show referenced Jane Fonda and Ted Turner, who were two people, iconic people on completely. Jane Fonda is this like total lib feminist, hear me roar, like fuck you conservatives, right? And Ted Turner is this like uptight big conservative. They're married, and she always said at the time, like, I can disagree with literally every point that he stands, but I love him. And I feel like that is something that is a really kind of a lost art, because you're exactly right. Where does it go from there?
Yes, yes. And I love that segue, because when we can come back to love, not just our idea of romantic love, right? But actually like a higher divine love, true love, is where we can start to access more of our intrinsic divine nature. Hence, AKA the goddess within, or the God within, because that part of us, that essence of us, right, we can love and hold at the same time, especially as the goddess, as the embodied feminine. We can hold our rage and our anger and our outrage and the pain of what's going on in the world that we disagree with in one hand. But again, the true work is, can we also hold in the other, right? That same child of love and compassion and acceptance and surrender and deep faith, right? In whatever's going on in the natural cycle. And that's where the work, and my audience knows I speak all the time about embodying the divine feminine. And that's what I truly believe this world is needing more now than ever, is divine feminine energy, essence, leadership everywhere, which isn't emasculating men. And it isn't, one piece I want to make sure that I say, it's not focusing on being mad or dismantling even the patriarchy. There is a misinterpretation that it's like, if I'm a woman and I'm divine feminine, it needs to be because it's the patriarchy and it's the patriarchy. And we keep pointing to a system where the truest divine feminine sees the importance of that patriarchy to serve us in our liberation, therefore accepts, right, and carves her own way, regardless of, because there's still an underlining victim when we point continuously to a source outside of us. And so I wanted to bring in this to the conversation and pivot, because as we're talking about such powerful world political pieces, we're highlighting the beginning, the fucking brilliance of the feminine and the brains of the feminine. And now we're going into the goddess, right? The embodiment, bringing it into the full body component.
It's the best. Here's what I will say. And I obviously love this topic. I'm like, I am this topic. It is my personality. No, but I have talked about this. I've interviewed huge A-listers about this. I've written op-eds about this, right? I've gone on my whole own, what I call Operation Sex Goddess Body, fitness, body, spirit, mind, soul journey about this and bringing out the goddess.
Yes, that's why I want to talk about it a bit more. And I have a couple of things that I want to dive into with you about that.
Yes. Ever notice, right? Like, let's just like look at it at this kind of like cultural, societal level. Ever notice how the same women who are, equality, bra burning, I won't shave, smash the patriarchy, equal pay, da 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 da, in fighting for women, advocate, even if they don't even realize it, but kind of underneath, right? Subtly advocate for women to be like men. Ever notice that?
Oh, 100%.
That's been a huge part of my journey. It's like actually to not only coexist, but succeed among men and reach a level of, accomplishment as them. I don't have to act and be like them. And that's the irony of the whole thing. It's like, if you want to fight for women, then do that. But I don't want to dress like a man. I don't want to act like a man. I'm a woman and I'm powerful in my own right. I can't tell you, especially in media and entertainment and, in news writing and all of that, how many, I've worked for a lot of these, feminist, cool, up and coming outlets. All of these female bosses I've had, they've acted like dudes. And it's like weird. It's like they take on this mentality of like, you almost have to like be a dick or something or act like a dude. And it's the most bizarre thing to me. It's like, to fight for women, then fight for women being women, not acting like men, period.
Yes. I'm 100%. And it's like even the thing of like boss up, suit up, and we have like the suit jacket or the pants. It's like, no, we don't, or the idea
suit, right? The power suit.
Correctly. Yeah, the power suit.
My power suit right now is my midriff showing. I have these little sequency dangly things and my nipples are the star of the show. Exactly.
Power dress. My boobies are lovely in a lace outfit. I got no panties on. Feeling my power, right? Like that's my power.
Constantly commando. Yes, for sure.
And again, like it's to notice the interesting way of like, in order to be in a man's world, you have to play the part that a man respects. And I believe that that's, again, a mindset shift that hasn't happened within more of the hard, strong core feminist, because there's still a fight. And what I really see is the nuanced difference. And maybe you've heard this before, you haven't. I'd love to hear from you. I feel the nuanced difference is that the divine feminine, she isn't fighting for her place in the world. She's showing up and just simply shining, owning, and creating new space in her world. And when I go a little bit deeper into that, it's more in the sense of where she's fighting for the thing. The divine feminine isn't fighting for anything. She's inviting collaboration. She's inviting a higher consciousness. She's not fighting, she's inviting. The divine feminine isn't trying to create more conflict, right? Because again, there's a greater understanding of the mystery of life that our simple human consciousness cannot understand. It doesn't mean that she's quiet. It doesn't mean that she holds back. Absolutely not. Right? You condemn and exactly. Yeah. Right. And so I'm curious, have you heard anything about that little bit of a nuanced difference of like the fighting instead of now inviting?
Right. I agree completely. And I love that you said that because, I tackle this a lot, how what's happened is, and this, if we're going back, maybe it was the mindset and the rules put in place by men to contain women's sexuality, because let's be real, that shit is powerful. You see it, you see the visual of like an Angelina Jolie, whatever, you're mesmerized. They're smart on top of it. Your brains are exploding, right? And I often argue that women have taken that though and have run with it and have perpetuated those rules. So when it comes to what you're saying, it's now often misconstrued where if you're feminine or pretty or beautiful or dressed for your body, you're just number one, right? You're a meek, fragile woman who's just playing into the male gaze and sex object of what a man wants you to be. It's like, no, this is what I want me to be. And I think there's something really powerful about what you're getting at, which is the yin and the yang. And it's okay that men inherently have an aggressive, dominant personality, and women are, in a lot of ways, like we think in different ways, we approach things in different ways. And, it's funny, like even, we're the nurturers and we're soft. And that doesn't mean that we're, pushovers or like we're the fucking matriarchs. But it's like, again, we can be multifaceted in that. And it's so funny because sometimes when I'll argue with my boyfriend, who is such a like alpha male, and I love that about him, sometimes he'll be like, you know what? I just, because as proven, I'm a ball buster. I'm stubborn. I have to be right. When we're really at the peak of an argument, sometimes he'll be like, you know what? I just want your like feminine love and embrace and energy right now. And that is so powerful because again, you know, there's really something to be said about that. You know, it's not a weakness. I think that's what's
and you know, to that point, there's two things that I wanted to bring into this, which is one, like the masculine energetics is designed and intrinsic through the universe to provide and protect. Right? Yeah. That's the masculine pole. And we as the feminine want to always feel provided for and protected in life, right? Because otherwise the tiger would come and get us, right? So we want to know we're safe and we're protected. And in turn, the masculine really craves from the feminine isn't the protection and the providership, which so many feminists get wrong. What the masculine really craves from the feminine, right, is our love, our sex, and our attention. That's what they crave, which attention is also, in a more spiritual term, our radiance, our love light energy shining on them. That's what they crave. That's the healing balm. And that's the feminine superpower that most women have not known how to connect to. Hence the disconnection of their true goddess. And to what you're speaking to in my teachings of the feminine triad, we go under the sex goddess. And the sex goddess, there's a light and a shadow expression. And what you're speaking to is the shadow expression of the sex goddess, which has been trained and conditioned to use her sex and use her body and use her attention and appeal to, if a man wasn't going to provide and protect for her, she would use that as a form of manipulation to ensure she would be provided and protected. And then that's taken its own evolution.
The seductress.
Yeah, the seductress, the temptress, and again, in its shadow expression, right? Yeah, the shadow, but there's a way that we can bring it into conscious use, right? Where it's not to harm or to manipulate, but instead it's to mesmerize, to entice, and to what a provocateur is. A provocateur is an agent of change. A provocateur is someone who brings in and activates energy inside for an awakening or change or transformation. That's the light expression of like that shadowy temptress or the shadowy seductress. It's like, no, and that's why I loved and wanted to bring you on. It's like, because we have that lighter provocateur, which is a healthy expression to activate and spark change of thinking, change of being, change of operating. Yeah. So, and that's why I was like, let's talk about it because, you know, that really is a mindset change. That really is a shift in how she loves and holds and is in her actual body, right? The way from how she dresses, like you're saying, to how she is from the inside out. And really, and you can confirm if this is accurate, when we do the work around knowing that goddess within us, especially the sex goddess expression, there's a boldness that comes when you own your sexuality, when you own that power as yours, to wield it however you want. And then you feel safe inside of yourself to be outspoken, to show up with no bra in public or commando style, to be the center of attention and the light, because you're there to shine so bright and own it. So I want to hear about your Operation Sex Goddess, honey.
You completely hit the nail on the head. And I want to bring in a couple of big pop culture references that people will recognize and resonate with that I think kind of accomplish this, right? So you have like Erin Brockovich, right? Like iconic, Julia Roberts, even Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? She's like, again, goddess body, like just gorgeous and beautiful and curvy and like the black chic dress with her boobs and the whole thing. And yet is this like cunning hitman, basically, right? And my fave example, but Elle Woods. Like whenever someone says to me Elle Woods, I'm like, that is the highest honor. and compliment. And I think somebody, before I get into kind of like how this all is a little bit touches on what Operation Sex Goddess Body, how it started and what it is, someone who I think who's really come on the scene and who is Sex Goddess Body is Sydney Sweeney. Like this bitch is goals. I'm always like, whoever is on her creative team needs a raise. Like she is just fire. She exudes that. Like her body is banging. Her like the photos are on point. It is just a vibe. And it says it all about containing women's sexuality. So I interviewed Sydney Sweeney, who's now a huge A-lister, when she first came on the scene. What show was she when I interviewed her, but The Handmaid's Tale? Okay, where the women are literally, like, if you don't know, and if you're living under a rock, where the women are literally donned head to toe like pilgrims and are actual sex slaves. And we were bonding on the red carpet, Sydney Sweeney and I, about, being, shorter, petite, busty women. And we're like joking about each other's boobs. And she told me how when she was filming The Handmaid's Tale, right, because she was in that role, they taped her boobs down. And they taped my boobs down. I was telling her when I was in like my eighth grade school production of The Sound of Music, because I was one of the kids, right? But that says it all right there about literally taping down and shutting down and boxing away women's sexuality. Yes. So Sex Goddess Body to me, and it's funny because the name itself, I don't even know where it came from. I think it was just so like in your face. And you would think, because I call my journey Operation Sex Goddess Body, you would think that people and women especially would be like, oh, she's full of herself. Like she thinks she's the shit. And for whatever reason, they welcome it warmly. I'm talking like progressives, conservative women, sex kitten women, more modest women, plus size women, they are on board because it's something like intuitive. They just get it. Like they get that it is the power that you're talking about and that it's a little tongue in cheek, right? It's like, fuck yeah, like I'm going to be the sex goddess, right? And own that. So how it started, it was really personally in my life. I was kind of at a new level and a turning point in a new chapter, right? I was a big red carpet reporter in Hollywood. COVID comes, annihilates the business. I end up, moving home with my parents, starting my show, kind of really like down in the dumps, right? In a position I never thought that I would be in. And so I was starting a new chapter, picking myself up, moving to a brand new city, Nashville, and taking my show there and all this. And that was a big motivation for me to unleash this goddess. So first I started, dressing a little bit differently. Like even the idea of going in public with no bra, I thought was insane. I was like, as someone with huge boobs.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, the difference of like the dress, because usually it kind of starts with like our clothes, because it's the quickest thing we can start to kind of try on, right? A new identity. So I'm curious, so what were you kind of wearing before? And then what did you start to dress or start to shift into?
I was like Stevie Nicks' Siamese twin. I was wearing this witchy, drapey, black, like I wore a lot of, and I'm fair skinned, like I wore a lot of like neutrals that were not wash me out, were not doing me any favors. Like, and that's another thing I've learned in all of this, playing up the power of what has impact on the eye for both men and women, and the things that women think are so hot and cute and men are like, that shit is hideous, right? So like, that's a whole thing. But, a lot of neutrals, these like grandma bras. And I always like dressed cute, but it wasn't any degree. Like now people are like, you are like.
It wasn't turning heads. It wasn't like.
No, it wasn't turning heads. And one of the favorite reactions I've gotten about my journey, well, one, I love when guys are on board. I have so many guys be like, I want to do sex, God body, like, let's go. Like, that's what it's about. But I had one guy who knew me on the red carpet and he said, you went from like cute girl next door to like power bombshell. Like, and I love that. Ooh. So then it turned into the physical. And And the
Yes.
great thing about Operation Sex Goddess Body is that there's no like operation or like surgeries or any of that, right? In fact, that
yes,
like
thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you. No surgery, all natural. Like that's all possible.
Exactly. And I did an episode on my show, like, and for me, whenever I do episodes that are like really I'm tied to personally, they're the harder ones for me to do because they mean so much to me. But I did a whole episode about this. So one was the personal, right? What was going on in my personal life, starting a new chapter, wanting to be empowered, also socially and culturally. You know, I talk a lot about how we see all of this extra excessive fillers and filters and surgeries. And then we have the other end of it, which is like, if you're not, you know, praising literal obesity, you're body shaming. Like it's all just such nonsense. And I thought, how can I literally take it into my own hands, have this rocking fucking body, sex goddess body? Like what you think of when you think that epitome of that. So it started.
What do you think of when you think of sex goddess body, right? Because again, it is subjective. What does Taylor think about, or what did you think about specifically?
It is totally subjective. And I love that you say that because I always have that kind of disclaimer or that footnote of like, look, this could look totally different to you. And that's cool. This is what it happens to be for me. Again, I think the Sydney Sweeneys, I think, you know, even the big fake boobs, fine, like the iconic, like Pam Anderson in her peak. I think, you know, again, like the Angelina Jolie's, like, you know, Sabrina Carpenter right now is someone who really has it going on.
Which, by the way, Angelina Jolie does not have very big breasts either. Sure. She's just a total bombshell, right? So for those of you that are listening, right? Those of you that are listening, you know, understand that we're talking about this from both a brown-skinned woman's perspective that's like medium to full-size breasts to a beautiful blonde bombshell with fuller, you know, bustier breasts. And again, we're having a conversation around sex goddess, what that means to each of us naturally. And so it's beautiful to notice that we can shape our own ideal for wherever we really want. But the key thing that I'm hearing for you is like, you got clear on what that means for you as your iconic motivation. And that's the most important thing.
And for me, it was, again, really power, right? Like stepping into this new chapter of my life and like leveling up and realizing the power of the visual, like I said, the thought and the brains and the power of when they come together. And I thought, if I really want to be this game changing, like you will know my name thought leader in this space, I want to utilize every tool in my kit, you know, no pun intended. And so Sex Goddess Body started off with all of that mentally, socially, as a fitness journey. So funny enough, it started off because I already had the boobs going, where I wanted this like really bubbly, perky, like it started off as like Barbie butt, right? So, you know, it's all about the butt. Yeah. So really it started as a butt journey to like tone the legs, get that butt, like really craft and shape and sculpt that. And I was hardcore. And I'm also a firm believer in, look, if you know, we talk about the surgeries and all that. If you want to do, you know, live your life, if you want to do the thing here and there, the Botox, the nose job, boob job, whatever, that'll make you feel better, by all means. But I also think that there is such glory in having a goal and having the dedication and the grit and the commitment and putting the work in and not the instant gratification and doing it the quote hard way. And that's exactly what I did. So I was asking, you know, friends of mine who were professionals. I was in the gym 2 hours a day. I completely changed my diet. You know, I had side hustles. I would go and do weights for an hour and a half in the morning, go to my side hustle all day, and go and do cardio for half an hour at night. Like I cut out all carbs, sugar. My protein was and still is through the roof. I was bookmarking all of these workouts on Instagram with these influencers. Like it has been a journey. And I remember in the beginning, I was so exhausted. I was like dizzy. I was dehydrated. And now, you know, I would even go up to people like reluctantly in the gym being like, you know, can you help me with this? How do you do this? Cut to now, the roles are reversed. And so it transformed from just the butt thing to an entire body mind experience. And I found in the journey that I just grew such a lust for life. Like I grew my productivity, my buzz, my engagement with the world. Like I made me feel like, what else can I do? Like it made me feel more powerful in every aspect of my life. And so that's why I'm really so proud of it. And again, like the dedication, because there were so many times where I was like, fuck this. No, I want to give up. And it's like, nope, like pushing through. And I think that's why it resonates with both men, women, no matter where you're at physically, politically, because I think that there's real, power in that. And for me, it changed everything from the inside out, what I'm capable of and my energy and all of it.
I love this so much because it's a testament that we are so resilient and also we are so powerful that we can create anything and be anything that we want and we desire. And it does require, like you said, the mindset around it. And so when you had the days, right, when you were like, oh, I'm tired, or oh, I'm sore, I don't want to get up, right? What would be like a mantra or a statement that you would tell yourself to move past it if you can even remember? Maybe it's something that you take with you even today.
I would kind of envision myself in that ultimate powerful goal that I want to achieve. Like even
so visualization, yeah.
Yeah, like I would literally envision myself, in a meeting with big important execs, pitching my show or pitching something or, walking into a big opportunity. Like this is where it'll pay off because you will have that money. And I think like something about it that's so powerful and that we kind of like flirted with is the idea of being like so in your face about it that you don't fucking care. Like, that's why I love that it's Sex Goddess Body, because there's something unabashed about being like, you know what, again, in a time when women's sexuality is like punched down and bad from both sides, it's like, you know what, I want to be fucking hot. And there's nothing wrong with that, like, period.
Yeah.
And I also, Josephina, when you know this, when you completely own it, that's another thing that I've noticed in this whole experience. When you completely own it, people are just on board. I've had times like recently, right? I hosted this big event for this big prestigious, women in music business association in Nashville. And I hosted this panel. It's all these business women, right? So they're wearing what you would expect, the pantsuit, whatever. I show up to host this event and moderate this panel. You would think I was like going to the club in Barcelona at 3 a.m. I have these like big platform boots, this tiny tank top, like this pink Barbie skirt. And I'll tell you, everybody was along for the ride. Like the president of the organization, the members, they're like, you are a vibe. Like, I love this. The most unexpected place. And it's all about, again, when you own it, people for whatever reason just buy into it,
It's contagious. And it's, there's nothing to push back because you're not fighting anyone. It's like, you're just being a big, bright light and everyone wants to feel good. And in that presence, people feel good, right? And that's what you're speaking to, is like unabashedly being that embodied light and also being shiny and silly and cheeky, and like people love that. It's just they're too scared to go there. But seeing someone unlock something inside of them, or they're like, oh, right, even if I'm not going to do that, like I can remember on a core level what that would be like, right? And just the excitement and the opportunity they have to heal even just a small part of themselves by being blessed with the presence of someone who owns it. And I'm curious for you, was it a very easy thing for you to own your light and your power? Or was it, again, a couple of steps for you to, embrace being the cringe, because that's one big thing is like, I don't want to be cringy, whether it's what I'm saying or what I'm wearing, or like, cringy to be like owning that I'm the center of fucking attention and I want all eyes to look at me, because it's not shadow, right? It's brightness. So it's like, was there a journey of embracing the cringe potential factor for you?
Yes. It was not, again, you're so genius. I've never been asked any of this and I love this. And I just want to just take a beat to your viewers and listeners already know this, I'm sure, but you are somebody, and by now, I don't say shit just to say it. You are somebody who is this and embodies this. And that contagious, like we talked about this offline, and we can tell the story after if you want, because I love this, but you are somebody.
Yeah, let's do
it. Talk. And I like being around you and talking to you. Like, it's just like you ooze that power and that goodness. And I have chills. Like, I just love that. It's like it takes it to know, takes one to know one. And you definitely are that. But in terms of my journey, it was definitely not overnight. It's funny because, and I took pictures to keep track of the progress and the journey. But it's funny, I talk about how I used to wear all these ugly like neutrals and like things that just did not look stunning on you, by the way. On me as a blonde, like pale girl, again, not doing any favors for my life. Yeah. So, even like the no bra thing, right? Like I would go to TJ Maxx and buy these like yoga workout tops. And I have one like in the very beginning of my journey that like before I really dove into like the pinks and the blues and all the fun, it's this like, it's literally like a diarrhea brown. Like I was like, okay, like it's still brown. I'm showing my, I'm not wearing a bra, but like I'm going into that territory, but I'm still clinging on to the old because it's a black or brown, top, right?
Yeah. 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 Safer.
And even physically, a reason at first, same thing with like going out in public without a bra, that's nonsense, that's insane. I had the same sort of thing about my physical journey because I thought, my whole message has been about, what's real and speaking your truth and what's on the inside, so to speak. So if I try to get this like body, will it be superficial? Will it be, will people see it as that? Like it's more than that, and life is more than that, right? But that also,
and that's also, I just want to pause 1 quick second because you're speaking to the narrative of almost every single woman that I've coached. I'm talking about like hundreds of women. Yeah. Like I'm talking about like thousands, like collective narrative and billions of women, like the narrative, that too much club narrative, like we're in the too much club, but to get to being in that, it's like, that's a real genuine, like somatic fear that women come up against. And it's natural, ladies, when you're going to be bold and when you're gonna break the mold, like to come up against, okay, is this too much, right? So I really wanted to just let that land a little bit deeper for anyone, goosebumps, for anyone that's listening, like that's a normal thing that you're gonna come up to, not to believe, right? But to bust through like you did, my love. Keep going. Please share.
Well, funny enough, going off of that, and you talk about being too much, and this is the first time I've ever said this. So you all heard it here first, and my audience listens, like, and I'm pretty like transparent with my audience. So you talk about being too much, right? So doing the physical thing of the Barbie butt and this, physical journey again, right? I was like, is it too much? Is it going to be perceived as superficial, all this? So I go on this journey. It's been, a year and a half now. And what happens, but, naturally, right? Because I cut down so much of my baby fat, I lost a lot of my boobs. Now you wouldn't know it looking at this because the camera adds, but my boobs were always like since I was in high school, like my trademark. It was like my thing, like part of my, bringing them out and, big titty tail. Like it was always my thing. So sure enough, on this journey, what like goes first, but my boobs. So lately I've been thinking about, again, this is so unlike anything that I've never even done Botox. Okay. So this is so unlike anything like I've said. I thought, I've gone on this journey. I've accomplished this body. Do I maybe add some of my boob, some of what was originally there, add some of my boobs back? And I'll tell you, Josephina, in the spirit of transparency, I've really been teetering on the fence because I thought, okay, I have this body, I have the blonde hair, if I have the bigger boobs that I had before, will it be too much? Isn't that like that is against everything that I'm about? Like that's how deep it goes. That's how deep societal ideas and these value systems go, that I thought to myself, again, I really want to be taken seriously as a thought leader in this space who has influence. Will adding the boobs, will people not take me seriously? And then the other side of me is like, you realize that's completely like what you do, right? Like,
yeah, wow. I want to just acknowledge you, like, yeah, for being super, super transparent, because it's not once we break through once, it's not going to keep coming up again, right? In some form, because we're women, and because the way that we actually, like, the context of life is filtered through our body as women. Men don't have these same things, or this part of them questioning their identity or their self-esteem. It's built in. Women, it's like we get a lot of our self-esteem because we earn it through the hard things that we're doing and like the building and the creating of ourselves. And, I just want to acknowledge you. It's like there's something, again, so deep, and sake of transparency, I've come up against that continuously. Pussy priestess, too much. Myself, like showing my boobs, a little bit more provocative, like losing friends. Is it a bit too much? And whether or not it's a question that will ever go away in our psyche as women, as we evolve, I don't know. But I do know that if we're asking the question and we're embracing, right, more of like the inquiry that comes, then that alone is taking away the power of fear behind being too much. That's what I would say. And I've thought about myself, transparent, I've never shared it anywhere. I've thought about getting breast implants myself because I've always imagined myself to have much bigger boobs and much bigger breasts. And that was something where it's like, for me, maybe I will at some point in my life, but for me, when I come to what I value in my heart, I value being a role model and an example of natural beauty. So that's for me where, even if I'm like, should I get it? Should I not? When I come back to the value versus the too much, and I redirect my focus into what do I really value the most important as a top value, then it becomes not too much. Then I'm like, I'm showing my boobs as much as I want, and that's one of the things I will say also in when I do work with women and we're doing like the sex goddess, all of that initiation, one of the big pieces that actually enhances your breasts naturally is breast massage. And you can increase your breast size. This is not bullshit, right? I went from like a smaller B to like a full C, almost a D now, purely from doing breast massaging and using a botanical oil, which I can always put in the link, to share, and actually like dandelion to help the actual lymphatic system and the breast tissue expand and grow. So there are natural ways, and I'll tell you about it too, to enhance your
No, I love that.
Right? And there's also that too.
I mean, I think oddly enough, this brings it back to where we all started, which is the journey and the evolution. And that's okay. You talk about cancel me, baby, to talk to me, Taylor, sex goddess body. At first was it this, now it's this. It's okay. Yeah. I'm never, ever someone like, I was like you. I was always such an advocate of like natural and you don't have to do all this and And I've thought about that a lot. I'm like, is it a betrayal to my audience or what I'm about or my message? Is it hypocritical? And you know what? It's like we evolve. And again, I've never said if you want to do the one thing here or there that makes you feel more empowered, like by all means. And so that's something else that I've really come to grips with. Yeah. Like I never in a million years thought I'd be someone who even like considered this. And here we are. So that's okay. Like, and at the end of the day, it's like, what are you about? And it's crazy that I would be so hung up on like, is it too much given like one of the huge milestones and touchstones of my career is being the only woman in Playboy who both posed in a pictorial and was featured in the same issue in the masthead as a writer. I love that you went there.
That was one of the last pieces I wanted to bring into the mix. Yeah. So tell us about that.
About all this, it was in an anniversary edition dedicated to free expression, a dream come true. And so you would think that given all that, right? Again, it's like not holding back on any of our expression, physically, intellectually. And it's like, again, it really goes to show like how deep all this goes, that I would be so on the fence being like, oh, well, would this physical trait then be too much? You know?
Right. And again, we're all open to changing. I might change my mind down the road as well. Like, that's the beautiful thing, is that we can change our mind, we grow and we evolve. And the one thing that I always say to anyone, myself, my sisters included, you, anyone, is like, be aware of what your decision is and make sure that it's coming from a deep place of self-love and not self-lack. If it comes from a place of self-love, there's going to be so much beautiful, positive energy around whatever you do, right? But if it's coming from self-lack, then no matter what you get, it's never going to be good enough. You're always going to see something wrong and something needs to be fixed. And that's where I say is like, you can never go wrong on your journey. Like, just tune in. Is it self-love or is it self-lack? And then fucking do your heart out of whatever you want.
It's all about enhancement. And I've had women come to me saying, you know what, I really want to embark on this journey. I'm just, really down on myself right now. And, maybe it's like I've gained a lot of weight or this or that. And I always I'm the first to be like, I completely empathize and I respect that, because this should come from a place of positivity and like wanting to, reach potential and enhance yourself, not like, this is, in my journey, I never once weighed myself. It wasn't about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never starved myself. It's not about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on the complete
I love all of this.
page. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And I love that you, again, were in Playboy as a feminine erotic muse and a writer. And it comes, again, full circle to this whole interview. What we've been talking about is like, really the feminine leadership is about owning all parts of us, not leaving other parts out. It's the beauty, it's the brains, right? It's really knowing that like we get our mind right, we dress up looking real cute, right? And we can make things happen for us, right? We can open up new ways and new doors through the beautiful, irresistible feminine charm and charisma that we all have. And I love what you've done with that. And I love everything that you stand for. I'm such a big fan. I like love and adore you so much. And I do believe that you really walk your talk.
Thank you. It's mutual. And, the thing about, that I'll leave you with the Playboy feature, I pitched it, number one. So it's like, I really drove the ship into bringing it into fruition. It was always a dream that I had to do both. But what made it so provocative is that it was just on the heels of Me Too. And so, you're in a time when it's like women are, victimized, or they're delicate, or they're fragile. And here you have, 6 female journalists, expressing themselves, exposing themselves, being the sex object, and smart, and writing. We each wrote really smart essays on the state of all of it, culturally, and free expression and free speech, and claiming our power. And so that's what made it, so like, whoa, like they just went back. They
so iconic.
Did that.
Yes.
So
iconic. And what would you say? I mean, and I'll have one last little fired question that I always ask at the end, but what would you say makes someone a provocateur? What makes someone a provocateur, and why do we need more provocateurs?
Oh my God, it is the most important thing. We need it because we need people to march to the beat of their own drummers and to set their own rules. And you know what? We need to evolve and grow and change. If we don't have anybody pushing the boundary or going there, then what? Either we stay stagnant, history repeats itself, or we go backwards. And that's what it is, period. It's like to evolve and move the ball forward and innovate and change, and be leaders, like you said, and not follow the rules that were set in place by other people. That's something I've really learned through this whole journey and the inside out. And someone said it to me the other day, and I was like, damn, that shit is powerful. It's like, why live by rules someone else made for you?
Yes. Yes.
That's deep. It's like, damn, who did make these rules? When, where, how far back do they go? Right. And
and when did I hit subscribe to that rule? When did I like enroll and enlist myself in these lies that we've been lied to? Right. And that's such a powerful statement. And I mean, I could talk to you forever. I would love to. And like one thing at the end that I would love to see is I always ask every guest to leave the community, and we've shared so much gold already, but just any little, like what I call is like a pearl of wisdom, like a pearl you'd love to give the community, of a pearl of wisdom you have, anything that either was brought in this conversation or something that you feel truly that, you know, would be a lasting jewel that you'd love to give the community.
I love that. I'll keep it short and sweet. Don't be afraid of your power. Don't be afraid if it offends people, if it's too much, like we've talked about, if it will go too far, if it'll hurt you, if it'll help you. Don't be afraid of your power, period. We're put in these boxes to control our power. And
yes. What? Woo! Woo! Yes. I mean,
hey, I didn't wear this.
Talk about ending on our power.
Right? I didn't wear this little shaky top flapper situation
for nothing, honey. You are such a doll, and I'm so happy that we are connected, that, you know, Rob connected Naeem and Naeem connected me with you, and that we have this beautiful symbiotic friendship and relationship, and knowing that, you know, you're out there changing the world and we're doing it in our own ways and our own expressions, but we both exist is like, power up, baby. Power up. It's
so mutual. And again, I'm not saying this just to, you know, brown nose you because it's your show. I have the utmost respect for you. And it's funny because I was telling Rob the other day, with all this whole journey, I said, you know, they were really, I feel, brought into our lives, you and Naeem, you know, for at the specific time for a reason, because I felt like all these things, you know, I've been dealing with, you know, and coming to terms with as an individual, and he and I, like the little, just your presence and the nuggets of wisdom you've shared. It's like, for whatever reason, it was just right place, right time, like what we needed to hear, when and why and how we needed it. So I want to thank you for that gift, because that's been, you know, so special. So.
Yes. Really such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. And everyone can follow you on social media, right? So make sure you stay along and follow along, and let us know which handle should they find you at. The podcast is changing over.
Yep. Talk to me, Taylor. Talk to me, Taylor, across the board on YouTube and IG. And the show name is changing, but if you do talk to me, Taylor, you'll be along for the ride. You'll see.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for talking with me, Taylor.
So much. Anytime.
Yeah. All right, Mama. Sending you all the love. Thank you.